Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
This is a highly recommended must-watch. Please stay tuned.
A move to more balanced diets could help us adapt to and limit climate change. Some diets require more land and water and lead to higher emissions than others. For example, diets that are high in grains, nuts and vegetables have a lower carbon footprint than those that are high in meat, and they lead to better health outcomes.
Continue watching to find out more. Hello, beautiful viewers. I'm William. The people of Australia wish you everlasting youth, vitality, and happiness. May heaven bless you. Welcome to our show entitled IPCC Special Report on Climate Change and Land, Heralding a Plant-Powered Global Food System, Part 1 of 2. Today, we are excited to feature a landmark report released in August 2019 by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, a Shining World Leadership for Life-Saving Hero Award Laureate 2019, titled Special Report on Climate Change and Land. IPCC is the body established by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, and the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, in 1988 to provide policymakers with regular scientific assessments concerning climate change. It was the recipient of the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize for its work on climate change. The Climate Change and Land Special Report is the second in a series of special reports and comes in at more than 1,300 pages. It mobilized hundreds of scientists from around the world, including more than 100 lead authors and review editors from 52 countries around the globe who collaborated on the project for more than 2 years. Since they referenced thousands of scientific publications in the process, the report can be said to represent the global scientific community. In addition, since IPCC special reports have to be signed off by almost every government of the world, they also represent the consensus of the world leaders. For the special reports, the majority of the scientists are not paid, but are volunteers who donate their time on top of their regular jobs. According to surveys and interviews with the scientists, many of them are motivated by a keen sense of urgency regarding the deepening climate change crisis. To understand their concern, perhaps the best way is to revisit the first special report titled The Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, released in October 2018. The Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, categorized the iconic report as a thunderous wake-up call for humanity. The report warned that humanity has only 12 years remaining until 2030 to take drastic actions to meet the goal of the 2016 Paris Climate Agreement, namely to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, at least well under 2 degrees Celsius. The Secretary-General spoke about this urgency in 2018.
We face a direct existential threat. Climate change is moving faster than we are, and its speed has provoked a sonic boom SOS across our world. If we do not change course by 2020, we risk missing the point where we can avoid runaway climate change with disastrous consequences for people and all the natural systems that sustain us. And that is why today I'm appealing for leadership from politicians, from business and scientists, and from the public everywhere. we have the tools to make our actions effective. What we still lack, even after the Paris Agreement, is the leadership and the ambition to do what is needed. Dear friends, let there be no doubt about the urgency of the crisis.
To the Secretary-General and the IPCC members, a 2 degrees Celsius rise above pre-industrial levels by 2100 is unacceptable because of the potential for a cataclysmic runaway global warming. The 2018 report also outlined numerous other serious consequences of a 2 degrees Celsius global temperature rise.
The report highlights a number of climate change impacts that could be avoided by limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade compared to 2 degrees centigrade or more. For instance, by 2100, global sea level rise would be 10 centimeters lower with global warming of 1.5 degrees centigrade compared with 2 degrees centigrade. The likelihood of an Arctic Ocean free of sea ice in summer would be once per century with global warming of 1.5 degrees centigrade, compared with at least once per decade with 2 degrees centigrade. Coral reefs would decline by 70 to 90% with global warming of 1.5 degrees centigrade, whereas virtually all, greater than 99%, would be lost with 2 degrees centigrade.
Concerned and responsible viewers, let us take a few moments to pray for a beautiful world and a return to Eden on Earth for our future generations. We will be back momentarily. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back, Earth-caring friends. The 2018 IPCC First Special Report found that in order to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, global net human-caused emissions of carbon dioxide, CO2, would need to fall by about 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around 2050. The reality, however, is that governments lag far behind on their pledges to date. Moreover, according to the UN World Meteorological Organization, we are in fact heading for a 3 to 5 degrees Celsius temperature rise by the end of the century. Fortunately, the newly released Second Special Report on Climate Change and Land brings revitalized hope with its wise, clear policy suggestions. The key message of the report is that in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, better land use, halting deforestation, and cutting down on food waste must be the priorities. The report makes it clear that highly potent greenhouse gases, methane and nitrous oxide, represented by the yellow and brown lines in the chart shown, have steadily increased by about 1.7 times since 1961, and must be reined in rapidly. By IPCC's estimates, 33% of global methane emissions come from livestock. When examining this data, it is important to understand that methane and nitrous oxide are far more destructive to the atmosphere than CO2 in the near term. They are 72 times and 298 times more temperature raising than CO2 respectively. So their seemingly smaller percentage, as shown in the chart, nevertheless represent in fact highly significant damage. The combination of these three gases has set up global climate feedback loops that are already wreaking havoc and will continue to escalate for hundreds of years to come if we are slow to act. The authors of the report clearly note that livestock production is a major contributor of methane, nitrous oxide, deforestation, and food waste. They have therefore highlighted the need for immediate reduction of meat and dairy consumption as a key solution. For the first time, an IPCC report demonstrates scientifically that a plant-strong diet is needed to avoid climate catastrophe. In the words of the IPCC Special Report Working Group 3 co-chair Jim Skier,
what we've pointed out on the basis of the scientific evidence is that there are certain types of diets that have a lower carbon footprint and put less pressure on land. A move to more balanced diets could help us adapt to and limit climate change. Some diets require more land and water and lead to higher emissions than others. For example, diets that are high in grains, nuts and vegetables have a lower carbon footprint than those that are high in meat, and they lead to better health outcomes.
In a 2009 conference, the world-renowned humanitarian and spiritual master, Supreme Master Ching Hai, shared with attendees that the greenhouse gas emissions from animal agriculture actually exceed 50% of total human-caused emissions, much more than the previously reported 14.5%. This assessment is supported scientifically by an exhaustive report entitled Livestock and Climate Change, released by the World Watch Institute in 2009, authored by World Bank Group researchers Jeff and Hang and the late Robert Goodland.
One of the most effective and fastest way to reduce the heat in the atmosphere is to eliminate methane production. Methane not only traps up to 72 times more heat than carbon, it also goes away from the atmosphere much faster than CO2. So if we stop producing methane, the atmosphere will cool more quickly than if we stop producing carbon dioxide. So to cool the planet most quickly, we have to stop consuming meat in order to stop the livestock-raising industry, and thus stop greenhouse gases, methane, and other toxic gases from animal industry. We would then have time to actually be able to adopt longer-term measures, such as more green technology, to also remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. In fact, if we neglect to stop meat production, either all these green efforts will be cancelled out in effect, or we might lose the planet before we even having a chance to install any green technology such as the wind power or solar power, or more hybrid cars for that reason. Please also keep in mind that although livestock has been reported to generate 18% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than the world's transportation sectors combined. This is actually an underestimate, because recently revised calculations have placed it at generating possibly more than 50% of total global emission. I repeat, livestock has been recalculated as to generate possibly more than 50% of total global emissions.
Upon hearing of the recommendations of the IPCC's second report, encouraging governments to promote a plant-strong diet, Supreme Master Ching Hai was overjoyed and immediately honoured the committee and United Nations a Shining World Leadership for Life-Saving Hero Award with utmost gratitude, highest esteem and all blessing in God's love. We pray these urgent recommendations are quickly and thoroughly heeded by governments, organisations and people around the world. We are profoundly indebted to the dedicated IPCC scientists who have worked selflessly to distill such vital information for humankind. We are also grateful beyond measure to Supreme Master Ching Hai, whose love and wisdom continue to shine the path towards a world of benevolence, harmony and abundance. For more information on the IPCC Special Report Climate Change and Land, please visit ipcc.ch/SRCCL. Welcome to part 2 of our two-part show entitled IPCC Special Report on Climate Change and Land, Heralding a Plant-Powered Global Food System, part 2 of 2. The Climate Change and Land Special Report released by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change IPCC in August 2019 is a much-needed boost in our ongoing tussle with climate change. It comes on the heels of the 2018 Special Report on the Impacts of Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, which warns that we have only 12 years left by 2030 to take drastic actions to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial time. With 1.5 degrees Celsius of planetary warming, Earth will still face a high risk of food and water shortages, extreme weather, loss of biodiversity, rampant wildfires, and mass coral reef disintegration. However, it gives us a fighting chance to forestall a catastrophic runaway global warming. That is why the 174 countries at the 2016 Paris Climate Agreement considered it imperative that we keep global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius or at least well under 2 degrees Celsius. One of the most notably important assumptions in the 2018 IPCC Special Report was that global emissions of CO2 must begin declining by 2020 to limit Earth's temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. Since countries usually implement their plans over a 5 or 10-year timeframe, the plans really need to be on the table very soon. This is why, according to more and more key climate scientists and politicians, including His Royal Highness Prince Charles of the UK, we actually have only 12 months for nations to negotiate and agree to new large cuts in their own carbon emissions. Long-standing IPCC member Hans Schellenhuber, founder and director emeritus of the Potsdam Climate Institute, commented,
"The climate math is brutally clear. While the world can't be healed within the next few years, it may be fatally wounded by negligence until 2020.
The grim reality is, current plans will take us to a 3 to 5 degrees Celsius warming by the turn of the century, according to the UN. This could set off even more tipping points in the subsequent centuries, resulting in a hothouse Earth, a scenario that could mean the end of life on Earth. Some intellectuals are skeptical whether a 3 to 5 degrees Celsius warming could lead to an existential threat, pointing out that our planet has seen temperatures as high as 14 degrees Celsius warmer in the last 500 million years. However, temperature changes were so gradual in the past that life had plenty of time to adjust. By contrast, the present rate of warming calculated over the past 40 years is a staggering 60 times faster than any natural climate change. According to a study led by Jonathan Baker, a geoscientist of the University of Nevada, this is far faster than any living thing had to cope with. The exceptions are mass extinction events, in which an abrupt climate change, asteroid strike, or some other global natural disaster occurred. In those events, an average of 83% of species was lost. Perhaps it is not a coincidence that biologists are saying that we are in the throes of the 6th mass extinction. According to the UN Environment Programme, 150 to 200 species of plants, insects, birds, and mammals are disappearing every 24 hours. Around 1 million species are facing extinction within decades. That is nearly 1,000 times the natural rate. In view of such daunting challenges, the IPCC Climate Change and Land Special Report could represent our last hope for a sustainable future. It is the first ever comprehensive look at the whole land climate system in all its complexities. Weighing in at close to 1,400 pages, it covers a wide array of topics related to land use and recommends 40 measures aimed at reining in climate change. Most of these measures have only low to medium benefits, but two prominent themes in the report point to a powerful climate solution with overarching rewards. It is also a solution that can be carried out on both the individual and the governing front. The first of these themes involves the preservation of our world's forests, as well as other land-based carbon-absorbing sinks, such as wetlands and grasslands. The second theme focuses on putting an end to our grossly inefficient food system. Praiseworthy viewers, let us take a moment to listen to an uplifting message. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back, truthful viewers. Let us now take a closer look at the two key themes from the IPCC report that could provide an answer to our climate crisis. Since both themes are tied to land use, it is not surprising that they are inextricably intertwined. The first theme focuses on the fact that healthy ecosystems and soils serve as an important carbon sink, but a degraded land can only sequester a small amount of CO2 or even function as a net greenhouse gas emitter. Currently, healthy land and soils remove 28% of total human-caused CO2 from the air. By contrast, human activities have degraded 2 billion hectares of land, the size of South America. Thus now, this land cannot capture any significant amount of CO2 from the atmosphere at all. With the world population expected to reach 10 billion by 2050, further degradation of our land is anticipated. Accordingly, the authors of the report say that it is of paramount importance to protect Earth's carbon sinks, particularly the tropical rainforests. In other words, we cannot continue to clear-cut old-growth rainforests the way we do now, at the rate of 30 football fields per minute, or around 12 million hectares per year. Besides preserving existing carbon sinks, the panel says that we can take action to expand Earth's carbon sinks, such as practicing agroforestry, which is a farming method where trees or shrubs are grown among crops or pasture land. Agroforestry has the additional benefit of preventing soil erosion and increasing the carbon-holding capacity of the soils. In addition to agroforestry, we can engage in afforestation, which is the planting of trees on barren land, and reforestation, which is the planting of native trees in deforested areas. However, since practically all the fertile land is already in use, where do we find the extra land for afforestation? That brings us to the other key theme, or proposition of the report, which is a global food system reform. Part of the reform involves reducing food waste, which the panel says accounts for 8 to 10% of all global emissions. This is a significant number. The ways by which we can cut down on food waste include improving harvesting methods, reducing overeating, and refraining from discarding excess food. However, the real elephant in the room that has received little attention in the past high-profile reports is that an astonishing 77% of the world's agricultural land is either grazing land or cropland for livestock production. Despite taking up such a high percentage of our best land, meat and dairy only make up 17% of global caloric supply and 33% of global protein supply. Given such a woefully wasteful food system, it is no surprise that meat, dairy, farmed fish, and eggs top the chart as contributors to greenhouse gases. The report concludes that transitioning to a plant-strong diet can free up hundreds of millions of acres of land, which will help to curb deforestation and climate change. In Chapter 5, titled Food Security, of the IPCC's report, they compared the greenhouse gas mitigation potential of various diets, and clearly the vegan diet emits the least amount of GHGs. The panel also points out that a plant-strong diet is health-promoting and puts much less pressure on the medical systems of nations and consequently the world economy. The largest dietetic academies of the US, UK and Canada go a step further, saying that a well-balanced vegan diet is healthful for all stages of life. Let us now hear from one of the lead authors of the Climate Change and Land Report, Professor Pamela McGelvey, on this topic.
We know that our dietary choices make a big impact. So, for example, if we talk about high greenhouse gas emissions diets, those are associated with meat consumption. And so when we're talking about potentially reducing those greenhouse gas emissions, dietary change has to be on the table. So we're talking about potentially reducing excess meat consumption, particularly in developed countries of the West. And we get co-benefits from that. We know that excess meat consumption also contributes to negative health outcomes. So for us, it's potentially a win-win to address the climate crisis, but also health problems.
Thus, it is clear that a plant-based diet is the ultimate solution, halting both greenhouse gases and deforestation in one sweep. Upon hearing of the IPCC special report's suggestion for the world to transition to a plant-strong diet, our beloved Supreme Master Ching Hai was overcome with joy.
We had good news. United Nations and all the countries in the world signed the less meat protocol. No? So it's becoming official now. I hope they just go forward, become meatless. Not less meat, but meat less. No meat at all. That's why I came to celebrate with you. I want to thank all the vegans out there, all the persons, all the groups, all the organizations, all the governments, anyone who ever promote compassionate vegan way of life to save our world for us and for the next generation. Even just in your heart, you wish the world to become vegan. And all the governments who approve, who make into law, or who are going to make into law, for the citizens to stay on compassionate, healthy vegan diets. I thank all of you. May you continue these noble actions to save our world and the planet for the next generations. May God bless you forevermore.
We are truly humbled by the extraordinary effort of the mostly volunteer IPCC team that produced such a benchmark work, heralding a vegan world of peace and harmony. We pray that every person who contributed to this special report will be honored in heaven for eternity. For more information on the IPCC Special Report Climate Change and Land, please visit ipcc.ch/SRCCL.
All information concerning the scientific evidence of climate change and its solution is in Supreme Master Ching Hai's book, From Crisis to Peace, free to download at crisistopeace.org.
Insightful viewers, thank you for your kind attention today. Coming up next is Buddhist Stories, Wish-Fulfilling Jewels, Part 9 of 10, on Between Master and Disciples, right after Noteworthy News. May you always stay in love, laughter and gratitude, which are the essence of your being, according to the prophets.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/PE.